The 787 is the new generation aircraft from Boeing. It is lighter, faster, and more maneuverable than all its predecessors. The engines are revolutionary, powerful, quiet, and with very low fuel consumption. The cockpit has been entirely rethought. It draws upon the best military technology. The wing design is unique. On board, Wi-Fi works as it does at home. Technical progress based on satellite relay. Another innovation, extra-large windows. An astonishing invention allows the amount of light entering to be controlled. The majority of the aircraft is made of carbon, which is a first. Boeing called in the world's best suppliers. In France in particular. Thousands of parts assembled, wait for it, in 3 weeks. And it's at a unique moment, the arrival of the first 787 in an airline company, that we are going to explore this exceptional aircraft. Mechanics will explain what happens during maintenance operations. We will learn from pilots what makes the 787 stand out. The cabin crew will unveil the security systems of this new aircraft. You are going to discover this new Boeing as never seen before. Our adventure begins in Seattle, Boeing's #1 city. Here they think Boeing, they breathe Boeing, they dream Boeing. The yearly turnover of this aeronautic giant is $100 billion. The Air France team has a meeting here at the private Everett Airport. On the tarmac, they discover the Boeing 787, also known as the Dreamliner. This is Boeing's 500th 787, but the first to enter the French fleet.
It's a revolution. It is a step change in the industry like we've never seen before. Many, many innovations, many, many novel things that we have done with this airplane for the passenger, for the airline, for the environment.
This aircraft is smaller than the Airbus 380 or the Boeing 777. But like them, it is capable of reaching extremely far-off destinations. Consequently, the 787 allows airline companies to open up routes which were not previously financially viable for long haul. For example, Lyon-Singapore or Nice-Doha. Thanks to this aircraft, 130 new routes like these have been opened up. Its aerodynamics and lightness provide astonishing maneuverability. The 787 is the fruit of more than 5 years' research and development, in conjunction with leading industries. From the base model, Boeing has produced several versions of the 787.
Boeing is marketing 3 versions, the 787, -8, -9, and -10. The differentiating feature between them is simply the length of the fuselage. There is approximately a 6-meter section added by model. So the -9 is 6 meters longer than the -8, and the -10 is 6 meters longer than the -9.
The largest one can accommodate up to 330 passengers. The 6 meters shorter one can carry 290 passengers. Finally, the smallest 787-8 can take 242 passengers. Air France has chosen the -9 for its first model. This Dreamliner is just 63 meters long, with a wingspan of 60 meters. But it can fly up to 15,750 kilometers non-stop, more or less the equivalent of 3 Paris to New York flights. But before the Air France team can take flight with this 787, a little formality needs to be sorted out. Payment in cash. A transaction which we've exceptionally been allowed to film. The base price for each aircraft is $230 million. Here, in this room, Air France authorizes the transfer. The Boeing representative is waiting for the moment when the sum appears on their account, live.
Now we're waiting for Boeing to come back into the room and confirm reception of the payment on their account. So Suzanne should be back in 5 to 10 minutes.
It's always a slightly stressful moment.
It looks as though things are moving.
That's it. The money has arrived on Boeing's account. And like at a solicitor's, the buyer and the seller finalize the sale. Just for the record, this contract is for the equivalent of 1,500 Porsche luxury models. As of this moment, the aircraft is legally the responsibility of the French company. Now, the Boeing representative can symbolically hand over the keys to the Boeing 787.
Well done. The first aircraft delivered. We can tell the onboard teams to start preparations for the flight. Then we just have to take her back to Paris.
On the tarmac, the inauguration can take place. The highest representatives of the two companies are side by side. The sense of pride is palpable.
Pretty good.
Two hours later, the French crew is on board the 787, ready for takeoff.
Hey, Captain, we cleared to disconnect external power.
We can go.
The flight to Paris will take 9 hours. This is known as a ferry flight. It is strictly reserved for Air France team members, specially trained pilots, directors, project leaders. This is the first time that the company accepts being filmed.
Everything going well? I see you're having fun.
It's our first flight on a new airplane.
It's beautiful. It's expensive, but it's beautiful.
Thanks for writing the check.
The aircraft's engines are astonishingly powerful. If one of the two engines were to break down in flight, the other one would be able to power the aircraft all alone for more than 5 hours. Even though Boeing is the constructor, the French company plays a determining role in the choice of engines.
Airline companies have a choice between two types of engine, either General Electric or Rolls-Royce. Air France and KLM have chosen General Electric for their aircraft purchases.
The two engines are the GEnx models built by General Electric. These engines are equipped with 18 carbon fiber blades. Over a period of 20 years, these GEnx should be able to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 77 million tons. These engines are more powerful and yet lighter than the old generation. Aluminum has been replaced by more resistant composite materials.
These engines consume much less fuel thanks to new technology, and particularly by the use of new composite materials.
The work carried out in the General Electric factories is gigantic. Each engine requires thousands of parts to be assembled. One of the characteristics of this engine, far fewer hydraulic and pneumatic systems, and far more electrical systems. Composite materials make it lighter, 100 kilograms less per engine. And each kilo less represents a saving of hundreds of liters of fuel. These engines undergo a vast range of tests. One very impressive example: thousands of liters of water injected to simulate a storm or a saturated runway. These GEnx engines are more robust and easier to maintain. In contrast to aluminum, these composite materials do not corrode. Another advantage: this engine gives off 15% less CO2 than its predecessor.
Added to this, of course, is the environmental aspect, which is considerable, because this engine makes much less noise. You can see at the back of the engine these tooth-shaped chevrons, which reduce noise emission, which is very important for people living near airports.
Another strong point of the Dreamliner is its aerodynamics. One of the striking things when you see this aircraft for the first time is its extremely elegant design, particularly regarding the wings.
Obviously, this particularly fluid wing shape, combined with curves which we're not used to seeing in an aircraft wing, is not purely decorative. It also represents a marked improvement in aerodynamic performance.
At Air France, they use the word voilure to designate everything pertaining to the wings of an aircraft. Wings which improve the way of sliding through the atmosphere, and pilots are first in line to recognize this progress.
One particularity is the wing design of the 787, which looks a bit like a feather. The wingtips make you think of an eagle. This element represents a great improvement in terms of lift. I'm tempted to say it's like a glider.
One revolutionary element of these wings is the tips. This upward curve at the extremity.
What you'll see is the wingtips, they start to bend right at takeoff. And then you will see the tip of the wing that bends almost 10 feet above the horizontal line of the wing, and that is by design.
These new materials make the wings amazingly supple. The design engineers took inspiration from the morphology of the eagle. During the Seattle to Paris flight, we meet up with one of the new aircraft's key engineers. For 3 years, she has concentrated on every detail of the cabin.
I've worked with maintenance, the supplier, with an ergonomist, to achieve a result where we offer one of the best seats on the market in terms of comfort. The shell is fixed, as you can see. When I recline, I don't encroach on the space of the person seated behind me.
This is primarily for premium economy class, an intermediary class between economy and business, which has been rethought. The seats can be reclined further and are wider, 51 centimeters. The space between the rows has been increased.
We've added 7 degrees of rake. It's also much wider by 2.5 centimeters. There's about 5 centimeters more legroom to allow you to stretch your legs out.
Thousands of man-hours went into developing this cabin. While the company personnel relax for a while, the pilot in command offers to take us through the cockpit innovations. In the cockpit, the major newcomer is the HUD, which is short for head-up display. Technology straight out of fighter aircraft. An interactive transparent screen.
The HUD has been around for a few years now. and allows you, without lowering your head, to have within your field of vision the vast majority of information necessary for flying. In particular, your current latitude, your trajectory, your altitude, speed and direction. It's something really agreeable, because it allows you to be visually on the exterior, but still with your flight details.
The HUD isn't the only innovation in the cockpit. All the screens and communication and surveillance systems have been rethought. Electronics allow the position of the aircraft to be pinpointed in real time.
In the past, you had huge paper maps. The world was divided into a certain number of sectors, and you cut out your map and drew out the route so that you could follow it. With electronics, it's much simpler. So here, for example, you have a cartographic representation of the route being followed. You can see that we're over Greenland. You can swipe through. All this is the route that we'll be following up to our arrival in Paris.
The days of mechanical onboard instruments, altimeters, compasses are now behind us. Finance and ecology are other major considerations. Fuel economy. Never has a long-haul aircraft had lower fuel consumption.
Here you can see our average consumption, the fuel flow. This is our fuel gauge. You can see we're using 2 tons per engine per hour, giving us a total of 4.4 tons per hour. By comparison, a 777 consumes about 7 tons per hour.
This represents a considerable saving in fuel. The lower consumption is partly explained by the weight of the aircraft. The Dreamliner is much lighter than its predecessors. This is due to the extensive use of composite materials, principally carbon, which is notably used throughout the aircraft's fuselage.
This is the major innovation in new generation aircraft, the extensive use of materials such as carbon. With this aircraft, you have more than 50% carbon, 20% aluminium, and 15% titanium. This combination has made it possible to considerably reduce the mass of the aircraft and thereby reduce fuel consumption.
For example, the jet engines. The central cylinder is made of carbon. This is also the case with the wings and ailerons, as well as the central structure of the aircraft. Being much lighter, these materials make it possible to reduce fuel consumption considerably. No aircraft has ever been made up of so much composite material.
It's really quite something in terms of economy. Because of its weight, with more or less the same passenger and baggage load, it consumes 20% less than the Airbus 340 with a similar cabin capacity.
Another major advantage with carbon is that wear and tear is much less than with aluminum. With aircrafts of earlier generations, amongst the worst enemies are humidity and corrosion.
Composites also don't corrode. So the fuselage being, or the primary structure made out of composites, does not corrode, which lowers the maintenance cost of the airplane and extends the life of the airplane. That metal airplane typically has a life cycle of 25 to 30 years. When you look at the basic structure, it could easily run 50, 60, 70, 80 years.
Much cheaper maintenance. A total overhaul of a 747 requires 40,000 man-hours. A Dreamliner inspection needs only 3,000. The Dreamliner is the most electric aircraft ever built. That's what makes it so light and environment-friendly. Electrical systems are replacing more and more of the old mechanical and hydraulic systems, pumps, piping.
Technologically, the evolution is huge because the 787 makes great use of electricity for all its systems. For example, the starter is electric and the brakes are electric. In the past, brakes were hydraulic, starters were pneumatic. The extensive use of electricity means there are a lot of generators. Why so many onboard generators in electrical systems? Because it saves on weight.
Another innovation, each engine incorporates 2 generators. These generators supply electrical distribution units, shown here in yellow. Electricity is thereby used for the radars, de-icing the wings, pressurizing the cabin, and numerous other functions.
The systems being electric are making the airplane, again, very efficient, and they're making the airplane very environmentally friendly.
And for security reasons, all the Dreamliner's electrical systems have a backup. Another challenge, passenger experience. What could be more important for you on board than Wi-Fi access? Being able to watch films in the best conditions. Today, the head of these new systems is carrying out in-flight tests.
Our Boeing 777s were fitted with 9-inch screens. Here we have an 11-inch for all economy class passengers. Everything is touchscreen, so passengers can browse just as they would with a tablet or telephone. All sorts of entertainment is available, including a messaging application for chatting with people in other parts of the plane.
But how can you achieve an ultra-fast internet connection in mid-flight? It has taken the latest technology. The central element of the aircraft's connectivity is this hump, in the shape of a rugby ball. It takes several mechanics to install it, engineers who climb on the roof of the plane. It's this antenna which relays all the passenger connections, television, email. During flight, it transmits hundreds of megaoctets of all types of data every minute.
One new thing in our fleet is the provision of Wi-Fi on board. All the Dash 9s will be equipped with Wi-Fi, so you can stay connected during flight, send email. You can see on top of the plane the antenna which provides satellite connection.
Through this antenna, situated on top of the fuselage, the 787 receives satellite signals. Satellites which relay data sent from antenna on the ground. This apparatus provides unbroken connection for Dreamliner passengers.
Today we offer the possibility to clients who so wish to remain connected, to continue to work on board the aircraft, to send email, to converse with friends and family on the ground. It's been long awaited, and it's just the first step, because by 2020 the entire Air France long-haul fleet will have onboard Wi-Fi.
Internet access will cost you between 5 and 20 euros because this technology requires considerable investment in the space industry, the equivalent of 500,000 euros per aircraft.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have main engine start.
Rockets are needed to place satellites at 36,000 kilometers from Earth. It's no coincidence that Boeing is strongly developing its space sector. They're investing billions of dollars. The ferry flight is coming to an end. At daybreak, the passengers take advantage of one of the new features which Boeing is most proud of, the Dreamliner's revolutionary windows.
It's great. The windows are very large, giving you a wide view on the exterior.
Big windows, bigger like anything you've ever seen. No other airplane has windows that big, that are low, so when you sit in your seat, you can actually view the horizon, and it gives you this sense of openness.
Particular care has been taken over the size of these windows. They've been enlarged by 30%. But these windows are equipped with a technological first. A so-called electrochromic system makes it possible to vary the opacity of the plexiglass. The result is that the luminosity of the cabin can be changed at the push of a button.
Even the windows include new technology. On this aircraft, the traditional window blinds have been removed. With the help of a small button, an electrical system varies the color of the crystals and reduces window transparency to provide a nighttime effect in the cabin.
How can seemingly ordinary glass provide variable luminosity? These windows of the future are manufactured in this American factory. First stage, coat the windows with a special gel. Gel, which is an electrical conductor. These windows are then inspected manually to make sure the conducting gel has been perfectly applied. They are then cut into an oval shape. They then pass through lasers to ensure there are no defects. Last stage, two panes are put together. Electrochromic fluid is inserted between them. A liquid which darkens depending on the electric impulses.
In the past, to create complete darkness in the aircraft, the window blinds had to be lowered, which appears obsolete when you look at the windows of the 787, which have chromatic variation. The passengers have 5 chromatic variations. You can pass from day to night. It's a revolution. The customer is finally master of the light intensity he wishes to have in the cabin, which is a technological revolution and also in customer experience.
Another advantage of this new system, cabin staff will no longer need to bother you to open the blinds during flight. The crew can decide upon the amount of light entering the cabin.
The flight attendants can also control all the cabin windows from their command post. The aircraft is divided into 3 left and right zones, making 6 independent zones. They can choose these zones, or the whole cabin, and on this side choose the level of window luminosity. 5 for totally opaque, and 1 for totally clear.
After 9 hours of flight, the first 787 bought by the French company will land at Roissy-Charles de Gaulle.
Hello, everyone. I hope you've all managed to get some rest. We're about to begin our descent. I would just like to say what a pleasure it's been for us to share this homeward flight with all of you. Please fly with us again.
On the ground, on the concourses facing the runway, dozens of airport employees, journalists, and aeronautic fans discover the Dreamliner.
This is the first time that an Air France 787 has landed in Paris. Yes, it's a very emotional first for everyone, for all the employees. It's quite a rare event. It's going to come in from this direction. Touchdown will be on this runway. This must be it. That's it.
It is 9:10 local time. The temperature is 4 degrees. Thank you for this beautiful journey and this great experience.
Serge Vito, one of the pilots in command who has trained for months to be able to pilot the new aircraft, has the privilege of raising the French colors.
Here we go.
In keeping with tradition, when a new aircraft enters the fleet, it is baptized by the fire department.
The weather's not great, but this is magnificent all the same.
It took hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of meetings over the years with KLM and the different suppliers to prepare the arrival of this aircraft in the fleet. Naturally, all our procedures have to be adapted to this technology.
No sooner has this very flight landed than a new challenge awaits the Dreamliner. It must be ready to take off for Cairo in 15 days' time. Not one day longer. Each day's immobility costs tens of thousands of euros. Over these 2 weeks, we will show you how the new Dreamliner is taken in hand at the immense Roissy-Charles de Gaulle Airport. We will follow the mechanics and the pilots, but also the aeronautic specialists, the VIPs, as they gradually come to grips with this new Boeing. The next day, the 787 is taken to the airport's maintenance hangars. For the few mechanics who've been privileged with an initiation into this new aircraft, it's a day to remember.
They're all going to see the plane, I told you.
Bruno Charbonnel is a mechanic. He's been following special training for several months to learn the maintenance techniques for a Dreamliner.
The time comes when you say, I need something tangible. I need to get my hands on it, to see what it actually looks like, because pictures are fine. It's good to see it on the screen. But now let's see it in the flesh. Let's listen to it, touch it.
In 2 weeks, this 787 is down for its first commercial flight. But what if there's a problem? Engine failure. The mechanics have only a few days in which to perfectly master the new machine, but also to adapt this Boeing to Air France-specific standards, particularly concerning safety.
Since the plane's arrival, we've been adapting it to our standards, what is known as PDM, post-delivery modification. It needs to be brought in line with the rest of the Air France fleet.
This morning, Bruno Charbonnel has to replace the oxygen cylinders supplied by Boeing with the Air France ones. With this key safety element, nothing can be left to chance.
So we check the conformity, make sure it's the right one. Okay, I can fit it. There. It's for the O2 masks. They're connected directly to the bottle, so the passengers can breathe. We take it, we connect it to the bottle, and there you are. The person can breathe through it as soon as it's connected and the bottle is turned on. Right now they're turned off, of course.
In accordance with the rules, every operation is written down and verified twice. In aeronautics, this is known as reiteration.
It's a beautiful bird and we're fond of it. We're proud to work on it.
Even with a new aircraft, anything can happen. This type of machine is a high-precision jigsaw puzzle, which is incredibly complex mechanically. In the later stages of development, the first 787s came up against numerous complications. When they first came into service in 2011, Boeing had to recall and ground several of these aircrafts. This inactivity cost the company dearly. Engineers had to solve a number of technical difficulties. Issues with the electric brakes, with the new landing gear, with the engine starters, and major difficulties with the aircraft's batteries, which overheated. Between 2011 and 2013, teams from all around the world collaborated to solve these problems in a year. To show you another aspect of preparation, we received special authorization to enter this part of Roissy-Charles de Gaulle. How do crews prepare for emergency situations on the new aircraft? How can accidents be anticipated? This is where the crews train. A cabin, identical to that of a Boeing, is mounted on huge hydraulic pumps. This turbulence simulator emulates possible accidents. Storms, violent air pockets, water landing in rough seas. All these scenarios are experienced by the pilots. Today, it's Captain Serge Vito who has come to supervise crew training for the new Boeing.
Today we're lucky enough to have the first 787 pilots, those currently being trained. This is initial ground training before going to London. They leave for London next week to complete their training on a simulator.
Although not frequent, fire is the #1 enemy aboard an aircraft. So the first exercise is to enter this cabin where a fire is being simulated. The second stage, after quickly putting on a mask and gloves, is to bring the fire under control in a few seconds.
Look to make sure. Okay, we're good. Make sure there's no reignition.
It's something relatively recent. There is now more and more electrical material aboard, and particularly lithium batteries. And spontaneous combustion has been seen, particularly in cases where there is impact. Extinguishing a lithium battery fire is very specific, with a special procedure which includes cooling down the object once the fire is out.
The next step is crucial.
After the pilots, it's the turn of the cabin crew to go through fire training.
This is control, over. What type of fire are you dealing with? A device on fire? Yes, an electronic device on fire. Understood, make your way back.
On the 787, onboard Wi-Fi access favors the use of laptops and smartphones. And as we have seen, with certain models, the risks are very real. Air hostesses, stewards, no one flies without succeeding in these exercises and obtaining a certificate.
Training is what our knowledge is based on. The more you go through the procedures in the theoretical and also a practical way, the more you integrate the appropriate action to take in the event of a problem aboard.
In the meantime, the Dreamliner pilots move on to the next stage. The trainer goes through the use of emergency kits, in particular these new distress beacons.
You pull on the button. Now it's on auto test mode. And take it for positioning.
It is precisely in this new safety equipment that the specificity of the 787 can be seen, and this is an opportunity for the pilots and cabin crew to see it for the first time.
So, one step forward. That's it, well forward. 1 foot well forward. Okay.
5 a.m. Charles de Gaulle Airport. 1 week from the first commercial flight to Egypt. Captain Serge Vito and his team carry out the ritual tour of the aircraft. It's the rule before each takeoff, one last verification.
There are 2 forward ones, one electronic and the other... No, it's this one.
Serge Vito is going to supervise the first flight in real conditions for the new 787 pilots. During the course of the day, 5 teams of pilots will relay each other at the controls of the Boeing. For this, the aircraft will carry out successive shuttle flights between the airports of Châteauroux and Vatry. Aboard, we naturally find Bruno Charbonnel once again, the 787 trained mechanic.
As a rule, you activate it. You see here? This one here is for maintenance, and this is the normal one. This one's for us.
Serge Vito gives the pilots in training the final explanation of the flight plan. For the last few months, the training has been theoretical. Today, for the first time, they will really be at the controls of a Dreamliner. How will they react? Will they have the right reflexes? Is it easy to go from one aircraft to another?
Each machine is different. You need to be trained for each of them. Each training session lasts 2 months. You can't simply go from one to another. You need to be qualified. Switching from one aircraft to another would be just like switching between 2 totally different cars.
But a car which travels at an average of 913 kilometers an hour, and whose very particular aerodynamics produce new sensations for the pilot in command.
It's very agreeable to pilot, very delicate, more so than the 777, which was a bigger machine and a slightly older style. Here the dosage is even more delicate, which makes it very agreeable to pilot.
An hour from Charles de Gaulle, the pilots do a trial landing in Vatry. It's barely daylight, but journalists and enthusiasts from all around the region are already there. On the ground, Serge Vito changes the crews over. Without even opening its doors, the aircraft takes off again. In the cockpit, the new crew tests the power and reactions of the new Boeing. The pilots have, of course, come to know this cockpit. They spent a week in London for flight practice in a simulator. The crews practice the most delicate maneuvers. Flight controls, aircraft reaction, everything just as in real life. The pilot on the right is accompanied on the left by Thierry Bellot, a pilot in command instructor.
Yes, that's okay.
The simulator is still very theoretical, even though it's highly realistic. But being on board the real aircraft, surrounded by the real atmosphere of it all, nothing beats the real world.
At Châteauroux Airport, pilots undergo specific training for the delicate landing phase. A maneuver repetitively gone through on the simulator in London. On the simulator, although the flight is virtual, maximum concentration is needed for this landing phase.
Approach at Amsterdam, so we'll descend at 2,000 feet, then we have a glide path of 3 degrees.
This is the critical phase.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
3. Check. Shall we stay on the runway, Victor?
Useful exercises. Here at Châteauroux Airport, the landing is delicately carried out. It's the big day here at Roissy. After 2 weeks preparation, everything seems in order for the new Boeing. The 787 takes off for Cairo in 42 minutes. This will be its first commercial flight.
Down a bit. Down. Stereo, down.
These ramp agents have been briefed on the fragility of the carbon structure. They take every precaution.
You need to move the safety guard, or it'll catch over there. Okay, go on. It absolutely mustn't touch. If any machine comes in contact with the aircraft, it will cause internal damage. You won't see it with the naked eye. The section springs back into place. Even when we do the tour of the aircraft, we won't see anything, but there will be damage on the interior. You need to leave a gap of 5 to 10 centimeters, definitely no closer. So even if the aircraft moves with the wind, no other machines must come in contact with it. What? Send it in. On the 787, every container, every pallet must be fastened.
Naturally, nothing goes exactly as intended.
Take it out again, then. It's catching on the rail. Go on. Damn it. Okay, we're good.
It's 20 minutes before takeoff. The aircraft is taking on fuel. The crew arrives, headed by Serge Vito, of course.
The last piece of the puzzle goes in place today, because it will be on a true commercial flight. So we're really at the pinnacle, the culmination of a whole project. So once again, I'm very happy to be here today.
For the pilot in command, it's time for the final verification.
It's the last technical verification from our side of things before takeoff, so we make sure there are no apparent impacts anywhere on the plane.
The aircraft is ready. 2 of the ground crew will help the aircraft leave its parked position. They communicate with the pilot in command through a headset directly linked to the cockpit. The aircraft is in position. The pushback tractor disengages. The ground crew can unplug. He waves a red security ribbon at the pilot. The signal that everything is in order. The 787 begins taxiing. following the arrival of this new aircraft at the heart of the company has been an extraordinary adventure. A unique journey from Seattle to Paris.
It's going to come in from this direction. Touchdown will be on this runway. This must be it.
A unique moment which has left its mark. Engineers, mechanics, heads of projects, cabin crew, and of course, pilots.
Even after a career of nearly 30 years, taking delivery of a new model of an aircraft is still very moving. It's an extraordinary adventure, and often only happens once in a pilot's lifetime, so you savor every moment.
The Boeing 787 lives up to its name, the Dreamliner. It's what dreams are made of. Innovative engines, unique aerodynamics, smart cockpit, a carbon fiber fuselage, both light and resistant, updated windows incorporating technology of the future. The 787 is a cocktail of innovation, and everyone's snatching them up. This model has been customized by a Japanese company in the colors of Star Wars. Originality, which makes the new Boeing shine across the world. In total, the 787 has already flown 145 million passengers. 67 companies have ordered 1,207 models of the Dreamliner. So the 787 is a symbol of modernity. It reminds us of the progress made in just a few decades. This aircraft has become an icon, and its career has only just begun.